Hello everyone and welcome to this morning's episode of Trending, brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code TRENDING, you get 10% off. Right, we'll kick off today with the United Kingdom. Ed Miliband, my heart sinks every time I hear his name. Ed Miliband to tell MPs who reject net zero policies they are betraying future generations, because everything's inverted. Ed Miliband is to explicitly call out politicians who reject net zero policies for betraying future generations in an unprecedented update to Parliament about the state of the climate crisis, which he is calling an exercise in radical truth-telling. Again, everything's inverted. With Reform UK proposing to scrap all net zero measures and even questioning the science, can't possibly do that, behind climate change and the Conservatives ditching environmental targets, Miliband hopes to regain the initiative with a stark warning to MPs. Ditching environmental targets and climate change are not the same thing. That's why they connect environment with climate, because most people would agree with some form of environmentalism, where you're not dumping plastic in the sea and you're not chucking crap in the rivers and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that it makes the country and the world hotter and we're all going to boil to death. But they incorporate the two intentionally. Of course, we all know that Ed Miliband is a monumental ignoramus. He's an Ed the Ball. That's what people say around here. You know, where you've got like a centre half in a football match and he might not be very bright. Just tell him to Ed the Ball. He's an Ed the Ball. In the Div Olympics, he'd be a gold medalist. I like that one. So I'm not surprised that he's saying something as ridiculous as he's saying here, where basically, if you question me and my net zero madness, which is, crippling the country, destroying food security and energy security, if you disagree with that, then you're betraying future generations. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, like I say, he said something that stupid, but to announce you're going to say it, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Like, if he stands up in Parliament and he says something stupid, I'm not shocked by that. He said Miliband, his lips are moving. I know he's saying something stupid. But to go out into the printed media and say, here, everyone, listen, I'm going to say something really stupid and I'll let you read it before I say it. It is like licking a battery, but telling everyone that you're going to do it beforehand, because that way you get to be an idiot twice. Because you tell everyone you're going to lick a battery and everyone goes, that's a really idiotic thing to do. He must be an idiot. And then you go and do it and they go, oh my God, he actually did it. He really is an idiot. Now, Labour donor Dale Vince, I don't know if people know who Dale Vince is. He owns a football club called Forest Green Rovers, which he made the first vegan football club in the English Football League. And as a Derby County fan, I had the pleasure of watching Derby County fans chant to him, you can stick your vegan hot dogs up your arse, which, while it's not the most intelligent chant, it's funny and it amused me. He's on board with Ed Miliband. Of course he is, because Dale Vince's company has received millions and millions, I think it's over 100 million actually, in green subsidies from the government. So he obviously, net zero for him is ka-ching. And obviously he takes his net zero stuff seriously. It's why he lives in a castle. This is what he tweeted, right? Now, I've said this so many times when it comes to Bill Gates and all these other people, right? When they tell you who they are, believe them. So this is what he tweeted. I'd make climate denial a criminal offence myself. Because nothing says, right, my argument is completely robust. My science is settled. It's 100% right. I am definitely right. Nothing says that more than making it illegal for anyone to question it. As soon as someone tells me I can't question something, I start questioning it. Now, he's another one who's a bit of an idiot, but he's a sinister one. And I will say this, like, make no mistake about it, they will try and make climate denial illegal in the same way that they made Holocaust denial illegal in a lot of countries and imprisoned people, particularly in Germany, for it. And actually, the language of climate denial is directly taken from Holocaust denial, because it's supposed to create the link. It's supposed to create that connotation between the two in people's minds that, oh my goodness me, if you deny human-caused climate change, you're as bad as the Nazis. That's what it's supposed to do in people's heads. But also, why is it illegal to question stuff? That in itself is weird. Denying something. Oh, so yeah, put him in prison. He denied it. People are entitled to deny something happened. Doesn't mean they're right, but they're entitled to deny it. They can say, oh, I don't believe that. And that's fine. They can be wrong. They don't believe it. They don't have to believe it. Well, they do, apparently now. And by the way, on the subject, actually, of making climate change denial illegal, RFK Jr. was calling for that in a previous life before he rebranded himself as a freedom warrior. And there is footage of him out there saying it. Like I say, when someone tells you they are, believe them. Right, over to America. I'm not still talking about Epstein, am I? Well, yeah, I am, actually. But the pro-Trump influencers, they're done talking about it, predictably. Here's Charlie Kirk saying that he's done with it.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
Is there anything that Donald Trump can do, like honestly, I mean this sincerely, that these guys won't simp for? Is there anything? Because what they've done, they've basically pushed the idea of this client list being released. That was a large part of the campaign, really, in terms of getting him elected. It's like, we're going to come in, no wars, it's a peaceful president, we're going to stop the huge influence of big pharma and, you know, the mRNA stuff. You know, that's why RFK Jr. is coming in. He's going to sort that out. And we're going to release this client list. We're going to release the JFK files and the RFK files, RFK Senior files, the Martin Luther King files, all this kind of stuff, the 9/11 file. Everyone's going to know we are uncovering the deep state. Finally. So many people that genuinely are of the opinion that it doesn't really matter who you vote for, the government gets in, right and left, two cheeks of the same arse, would have gone, well, I don't normally vote. There's no reason. But do you know what? He's the better option, Trump. Even if he just does that, you know, even if he just releases the Epstein files, even if we just don't go to war again, and what have you got? So he's going to release the Epstein files. No, don't do that. He bombs Iran on behalf of Israel. He's arming Ukraine, and not just with defense weaponry. The Ukrainians themselves have come out today. I was listening on the drive in. On the radio, saying that it's not just defense weaponry. They're being sent offensive weapons as well, so they can fire missiles into Russia. They've continued with the mRNA jabs, and just last week, the FDA approved mRNA vaccines, fake vaccines, for 6-month-olds. They're banning free speech, particularly on campus, on behalf of Israel. So you've got this free speech. America's the land of the free speech. But if you call out Israel, well, best of luck. Get kicked out of university, get kicked out of the country if you're a foreign student. And like I say, he doesn't release the Epstein files. And still, these influencers and others are on their knees to Donald Trump with their breath stinking like his backside. It's a genuine question. Is there anything he can do? Because I've made jokes before about the fact that some of these guys could come in, find Trump in bed with their wife and say he had to do it. It's for the best of the country. It's going to make America great again. What? I said that as a joke. I'm at a point now, I'm starting to think they probably would. They probably would. Because the American people, they might not want to hear this, and the MAGA lot will attack me, and that's fine. It's kind of quite funny sometimes. They voted for Donald Trump and they got Joe Biden. That's what you got. But that's the point. That's why Trump was elevated. Because if all those things I've just listed, bombing Iran on behalf of Israel, sending all the weapons to Ukraine to prolong the war with Russia, which of course is about keeping Russia distracted so they can't come in on the side of Iran. So again, that's for Israel. Let's have it right. pushing more of the mRNA vaccines, not releasing the Epstein files. If Harris had won and done those things, you'd be going mental. Correctly, you'd be going absolutely mental. And that's the point. That's why Trump is the elevated one, because he gets to get the agenda further down the line. He gets to hide the Epstein files, and everyone goes, yeah, I'm bored talking about it now. As Charlie Kirk said, I trust my friends in government. Imagine trusting government. It's extraordinary. And you've got this Dr. Darrell Scott, who was an advisor to Trump in 2024. He's a pastor, because there's loads of religious people now, apparently, in politics. I don't understand it, be honest, but there you go. He asked the question yesterday on X, why don't Epstein's victims, now they're all adults, why don't they name names? Well, they did, mate. And at least one of them named your man Trump. So people just ignore that. Done talking about it. Of course you're done talking about it. Even Epstein's on tape, 1 hour and 44 minutes of him being interviewed talking about Trump. He says they were best mates for 15 years. They used to travel around together. He introduced him to his wife and all this kind of stuff. Trump was, one of the favorite things Trump liked to do was sleep with his best friends' wives. And Epstein even said, if he ever carried out an act of kindness, it'd be an accident. So imagine you've got an evil, demonic psychopath like Epstein, and even he thinks you're a wrong'un. It's extraordinary. And to me, I look at it and go, it's real simple, right? Just release everything. Just release it all. All these Epstein files, all these flight logs, all these client lists, just release it. And let genuine journalists and the public see it and make their minds up about what it is. Because that's what you said you'd do in your campaign. You were elected on the back of it, on a promise to release it. And actually, you handed out some ring binders to some influencers. I don't know if anyone remembers that. That was the first phase of the release of the Epstein files. You had all these influencer types that the algorithm just loves dancing around with files, which I said at the time was a little bit crass and inappropriate, to be honest, because you've been handed a list of people, so we're told, that abused kids and trafficked kids and women, and you're dancing around with them. That's weird. So what happened to them? So you released the first phase. We're told that. You got all these prats dancing about. Then they're on Pam Bondi's desk. They're there for review. Got the Epstein files. We've got the list. We've got the client list. Everyone's going, yes, we're going to get it at last. We're going to find out who all these people are. We're going to pull down the deep state. Yes, mate. I went a bit boy band then. We're going to pull down the deep state. But that's what they believed, right? Then suddenly, oh no, they don't exist. It's weird, isn't it? Well, they were on your desk just a couple of months ago. Yeah, I know, but they don't exist. Well, if they don't exist, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for trafficking people that don't exist to people that don't exist? But then we can't just leave it there. They should have left it there. They should have gone, yeah, no, they don't exist. Shred them, shred them, shred them. And then what would have happened? Not a lot, probably. You'd have had the influencers coming out saying, I'm done, I trust my government. I'm done with it. I don't want to talk about Epstein anymore. And it kind of might have gone away a little bit. I mean, I would have still talked about it, but I'm like a broken record. But then he has to come out again, right? And say, no, the files, the client list, they're a hoax written by Obama and other senior Democrats. Okay. I'm confused, Donald. So, for me, this is my position. Just release the files, like I said. Just release them. Just let them go out there into the public domain. Just how like WikiLeaks used to do. Just bang, a giant cache of files. Bosh. There you go. And let journalists go through them. Genuine journalists, and because they do exist, just not in the mainstream, and not in a lot of the mainstream alternative either. But let the general public look through it. Give people some credit, right? So do that. And also, if you could, explain to me like I'm 5, how you had the files then didn't exist, and the files were written by your political enemies to bring you down. Because the last two can't both be true. In which case, can you explain to me why you're lying to the American public? And in fact, the public of the world, because, you know, Epstein's sphere of influence wasn't just reserved to the US. So when people say things like, oh, get your own country in order. I'm aware my country's on its arse as well, but so's yours, and we're all in this together, believe it or not. But, you know, Epstein was meeting up with Mandelson and Blair and all these others, so it affects my country too. That's all I'm asking. Just explain to me like I'm 5 how that's the case. Because if it doesn't exist, it can't be a hoax written by your opponents. It can't be. So what are you lying for? Just finally, the pandemic treaty. Now, there was lots of talk about that while it was going through the various parliaments of the apparent democratic world. The pandemic treaty, basically, and the pandemic preparedness treaty and all the amendments to current legislation, basically, to cut a long story short, gives the World Health Organization, an unelected body, funded in most part by Bill Gates, the ability to make decisions overriding your elected officials. Now, I know your elected officials and my elected officials don't work for us, well aware of that, but at least they pretend to. At least there's some kind of pretense involved. When it comes to the pandemic treaty, there's literally no pretense. They control it. Now, they controlled it pretty much during COVID. Everything down to what was printed in the paper, to what was put underneath your little tweets or underneath your Instagram posts or YouTube videos questioning the narrative, all came from the World Health Organization. So they pretty much run the show anyway. But there was a little bit of sovereignty. So you had your Tanzanias and you had your Sweden to a certain extent, which could do things ever so slightly differently. And what that did is that created a good example to everyone else. And nothing terrifies these buggers more than a good example. So they've looked at that and gone, we can't have that in future. We've basically had 99.9% of the game. But there was that 0.1% that people could look at and go, well, that's a better idea. We need to get rid of that 0.1%. So what we'll do, we'll bring in a treaty that basically takes any decision-making out of the hands of elected officials. So as soon as a pandemic is declared, bearing in mind they changed the rules to allow the last one to be a pandemic, when of course it was just a load of nonsense. As soon as they can do that, they then take control. They can control all of the decision-making in terms of your health organizations across the USA, across the UK, across most of Europe, in fact, most of the world. And what I will say is this comes in 5 days. This comes into effect. It was passed through in May, and in 5 days' time, it comes into effect. Now, your governments have signed away basically any sovereignty, really, over decision-making in your country. And what I will say is buckle up, because you know what this means. These people don't want control over everything and give themselves all these powers for when there's a pandemic, unless they're planning a pandemic. Because it's not what they do. They don't get all these powers and all this to not use it. What's the point? And they've gone to great lengths to pass this through. Great lengths, actually. It's gone on and on and on for about best part of 3 years now. Back and forth to get it through. Now they've got it through. I'm wondering if they'll do it in 5 days' time or in 6 days' time. Whether they've got that much contempt for us. But when you look at, say, China, they've spoke about in the last week or so that there's another strain coming out of China again. It's always China, isn't it? And you've got your Ebolas and your monkeypox and your Marburgs and all these other things that kind of just seem to like just trickle around every now and then, keeping it in the public mind, keep it in the Daily Mail, so that eventually they can go, you ready? Yeah, go, bosh. And suddenly you'll start seeing more stories coming out of China, probably. They seem to like China for some reason. And then you'll see, actually, there's another couple of cases found in northern Italy, say, just off the top of my head. And then, no, it is a pandemic, bosh. And then all this stuff comes into play. And if that is the case, then obviously we have to go back to what we did before, which is ignore it. Because the power fundamentally is with us. You know, the government might not like to hear that. They can give the powers away to the World Health Organization, but they weren't really the government powers in the first place. Because government doesn't have any power. A mandate doesn't mean anything if everyone ignores it. It's literally they're just words. If I stand here and go, everyone sit down, and no one sits down, how powerful am I? I'm a chocolate teapot. Useless. And that's the same with government. They can say what they want. Do this, do that, stay home. No. And you do it in enough numbers, they've got no power. So these so-called powers that they've given to the World Health Organization, they're only powers that we've given to the government in the first place. So the best way to overturn the pandemic treaty is simply to give those powers back to ourselves and go, do you know what? Okay, I was a bit naive and a bit stupid. And for most of my life, I gave you the power to rule over me. Now you've signed those powers over to the World Health Organization now. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Rather than get annoyed with the World Health Organization and take beef with them, I'm just going to take those powers off of you anyway. So when the World Health Organization comes to you and says you need to do X, Y, and Z to your population, and they go, oh, God, well, I have to because of the pandemic treaty. Okay, we are going to do that to the population. And us, the population, go, stick it up your arse, mate. Then suddenly the World Health Organization ain't all powerful anymore. None of them are. They're just prats in suits, which is all they are anyway. They just have the illusion of power because we hand it to them. Well, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I ain't going along with any of that nonsense. I mean, I didn't go along with it last time, but I know a lot of people did, you know, walking around Asda following arrows on the floor. And then you'd realise as you're walking along, oh, I forgot sausages and they're behind me. Just turn around, mate. They're there. No, I've got to walk around. And we're the mad ones. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. That was Trending. As always, brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING, you get 10% off. My brother, I think Jay will be back tomorrow with Rich. If not, it might just be Rich because Jay's put his back out. He's getting old like me. But either way, don't forget to tune in at 10 a.m. and I'll see you on Thursday. Take care. Bye.